there everybody, Awesome Dude here again. I'm going to do something special for Christmas. For Christmas everybody, I'm going to read you a story. A story every day from now till Christmas. And it's got all this. All that. And inside everyone is a book. So we need to pick one. Well, first of all, I need to get rid of these. But I can't turn the page, can I? So let's put some of this magic dust on. Oh, you did a lot there. Oh my God. Oh yes, I got my hands again. I don't put my reading voice on. So here we go. Hi there everybody. It's me, Awesome Dude, with my reading voice. Do you like it? It is very posh. Well, as you can see, they've all got numbers on. And we need number 1. And this is the... Oh, here we go. There's a book inside here for number 1. And the book is called Mickey's Christmas Carol. Oh, that's not my reading voice. I need my reading voice, guys. Hi there, everybody, and welcome to Mickey's Christmas Carol. It was a Christmas Eve. Ebenezer Scrooge was rushing through the snowy London. Scrooge didn't like Christmas, and he didn't believe in helping the poor. He barged past controllers and wouldn't give a penny to anybody. Even when Scrooge's nephew Fred stopped by his office shouting, "Merry Christmas, Uncle!" Scrooge kicked him out. Look at him. Miserable. A while later, Scrooge's assistant Bob Cratchit stepped down from his stool to go home. "I suppose you'll be wanting tomorrow off," Scrooge barked. "But be here all the earlier than next day." "Thank you, Mr. Scrooge," cried Bob. "And Merry Christmas," he called as he went. "Bah humbug," muttered Scrooge. Miserable, isn't he? Later that night, Scrooge locked up his office and went home. As he went to open the front door, Scrooge took a closer look at his door knocker. He gasped. Oh, the knocker was the face of his old business partner, Jacob Marley. The face began to move and softly called, "Scrooge!" Frightened, raged inside, but soon enough the ghost of his former partner appeared in front of him. Wow. Change circled his body. "Tonight you'll be visited by 3 spirits," boomed Marley. "Listen to them, do what they say, or your chains will be heavier than mine. Farewell, Ebenezer." Scrooge went to bed, but not long later he was woken by a little figure in a top hat. "I am the ghost of Christmas past," he told Scrooge. "You must come with me." But Scrooge laughed. "Look how small you are. Go away." "Silenced," ordered the spirit. "If men were measured by kindness, you'll be smaller than a grain of sand. We are going back to when Christmas was not humbug." The spirit commanded. Scrooge grabbed hold of his coattails and, remembering Marley's terrible warning, he held on. The windows flew open and instantly they were soaring over rooftops and chimneys, the spirit little umbrella keeping them aloft. Whoa. Soon they landed outside a brightly lit house. Joyful Christmas music filled the air. Peering through the windows, Scrooge couldn't believe his eyes. "Why is it? It's Isabel!" he cried, suddenly remembering the girl he once loved. But who was she dancing so merrily with? The man was you, Scrooge, replied the spirit. "In the day when you too were kind and cheerful." The spirit whisked Scrooge away to another scene inside. Scrooge of many years before sat behind a desk covered in money. Isabel stood in front of him, tears in her eyes. "Why is Isabel crying?" asked Scrooge. Then he remembered he had taken Isabel home from her when she could not pay her bills and refused to marry. Oh my, oh. So he tried to go sleep and forget it all. Oh dear. Suddenly, Scrooge found himself back in bed. He thought it had been a dream, but then his thoughts turned to Isabel and how his chance of happiness with her had been ruined by his love of money. Scrooge put his head down and sobbed into his pillow. As he cried, Scrooge felt a heavy hand on his shoulder. He sat up, and beside his bed was a fierce-looking giant. "Feasting. I am the ghost of Christmas present," he boomed. "There's no time to lose." And with that, the spirit picked Scrooge up and put him in his pocket. He then pushed open the roof and stepped outside as though it was a doll's house. Big. Ho, 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 it's getting good. Scrooge peeked outside the giant's pocket. "I wonder where we are going," he said to himself, pulling Scrooge from his pocket, and the spirit tore a lamppost from the ground to use as a lantern. As he walked through the streets, soon they arrived at a tiny run-down house. "What dreadful little house," Scrooge exclaimed. "Who could live in such a place? Perhaps a miserable beggar." "Look closer, Scrooge, and tell me who you see," said the spirit. Scrooge pressed his face against the glass for a better look. "Why, it's Bob Cratchit, my clerk," he said with surprise. "Does he live here?" The spirit scowled. "Look how he lives, thanks to your generosity. Look at the food his family must eat on Christmas Eve because they can't afford." I keep looking through the window. The hungry Cratchit family sat at their table, about to carve up the smallest goose Scrooge had ever seen. Scrooge watched a boy named Tiny Tim hobble into the room. Leaning on a little crutch, he gave thanks to Scrooge for the meal, and Scrooge felt ashamed. "Tell me, spirit, what's wrong with that kind lad?" asked Scrooge. "Much, I'm afraid," the spirit replied. "If these shadows remain unchanged, I see an empty chair where Tiny Tim once sat." Suddenly the scene went dark. Scrooge was alone, church bells tolling in the distance. Oh. Just then, swirling smoke engulfed Scrooge, growling, growing thicker and thicker until he couldn't see around him. The smoke blew into his nose and he coughed. And the smoke lifted. Scrooge found himself standing in a graveyard. There was tombstones everywhere covered in snow. Scrooge looked up to find he was no longer alone. A horrible shadow, his face hidden inside a cloak, stood silently before him. Are you the ghost of Christmas future?" stammered Scrooge. "Tell me what will happen to Tiny Tim." The spirit just looked at Scrooge and raised his arm to point to something in the distance. Scrooge looked to where the spirit was pointing and saw Bob Cratchit and his family gathered round a tombstone. Bob knelt before the gravestone, tears rolling down his face, and gently laid Tiny Tim's crutch on top. "Oh no," Scrooge cried. "Spirit, I didn't want this to happen. Tell me these events can be changed." Scrooge noticed two gravediggers finishing a grave. "I've never seen a funeral like this." One of them said no mourners, no friends to bid him farewell. Scrooge peered to the grave and asked the spirit who it belonged to. "Why, it's yours, Ebenezer," the spirit laughed, "ha ha ha," as his hood fell from his face. "No, I'll change," cried Scrooge. The grave burst into flames and the spirit pushed him in. "Let me out!" screamed Scrooge. Let me. Suddenly a bell tolled, and as Scrooge opened his eyes, he cried with joy. He was back in his bedroom. "It's Christmas morning!" he exclaimed. He threw his coat on and a hat, raced for the door. He ran out onto the merry chill, calling "Merry Christmas" to everybody he met. He gave two men a bag of coins, who stood there speechless, wondering what had changed grumpy old Scrooge. Scrooge even stopped his nephew when he saw them approaching a wagon. Fred was so surprised by his uncle's cheerfulness that he almost fell off the carriage. Waving goodbye to his nephew, Scrooge continued on his way to Bob Cratchit's house. Rat-tat-tat! Scrooge knocked on his employee's door. Bob opened the door. His face fell when he saw who it was. "Why, Mr. Scrooge, Merry Christmas! Won't you come on in?" he said. Scrooge stomped inside and dropped a heavy sack on the floor. Scrooge then broke into a massive smile and told Bob he was getting a pay rise, and he bought food and toys for his family. That's nice. Bob Cratchit couldn't believe it. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Scrooge." "Merry Christmas, Bob," Scrooge said, as the whole family danced with joy. It was a Christmas miracle. "And God bless us, everyone," says Tiny Tim. The end. Well, there you go. Let me get back into the camera. I think that was a good story. Tomorrow, we'll go for number 2. Okay, number 2 tomorrow. So please, subscribe and like so we can see more of these books. There's 24 of them, so I've got a lot of reading to catch up on, okay? So come on, guys, let's do it.